What does animation have to do with picture books?
Telling a story visually is the same, whether it's in a book or on the screen with storyboards.
How does someone like me, a mom of two, in my 30s, or any age for that matter, become a more confident artist?
I think honestly, you just need to follow what you purely want to work on, and you just have to hustle.
Is it possible?
Do not give up and go home.
I talked to Disney animation royalty.
Well, I think you have to first identify what it is that you're excited about.
Hollywood storyboard artists and top character animators.
It takes patience with yourself, and it also takes patience with a process.
I don't think that art is something that is a boat that will pass you by.
And Viz Dev artists to find out.
A lot of practice, a lot of making friendships, a lot of accepting that you're always going to learn. Like, you're never going to be the best of the best.
You may be surprised to know that a lot of them had similar advice.
Biggest thing is persistence.
Just draw every day.
And so I broke that down into, say, if I did about 100 drawings a day.
Even when you don't feel like it, sitting down and sketching for me is what I commit to doing every day.
My name is Brittany Wietrich, and this is my channel, Written and Illustrated, where I share my journey to become a more confident, self-taught artist and picture book illustrator through online classes, mentorships, and by finding a community. In today's episode, I attended the first ever Animation Y'all Expo to get some of my questions answered and start on my goal of finding a community. This is Tom Bancroft. Tom has over 25 years of experience as a veteran animator, character designer, and director. He has worked on 8 feature films, some of which include Beauty and the Beast, The Lion King, Aladdin, Pocahontas, Mulan, Brother Bear, and Jonah, a VeggieTales movie. Before the conference began, I stopped by the Pencil-ish Studios meet and greet at the Well Coffee House. Pencil-ish is an animation studio and entertainment company where Tom is the CEO. I've never been to an animation conference before, so I'm looking for some guidance on how to navigate my time. So I decided to go to the source.
The thing that you can do as an artist to get the most out of Animation Y'all Expo, 2 things. Go to as many panels as possible, and then the rest of the time hang around the exhibition area and talk to all the artists that are going to be there. We have 50 artists there, 50 animation and art tables there that have a very curated group. They're all hand-picked, so they're all a nice level of training and ability, and they're all very nice. So I can say this: artists love to talk about art, and artists love other artists. So even if you're somebody that's shy, go up to them. Believe me, they will talk to you. And we're a smaller boutique kind of expo, so you should have plenty of opportunity to talk to a lot of the artists you want to talk to. So I'm glad you're here.
And you must know that I am really glad to be there. It's Mommy's Day Out after all. Well, I mean, really, it's a whole weekend thing, so I get the weekend, and my husband's holding down the fort with the kids. In an attempt to break the ice and get over the awkwardness of my first interview, I asked him a slightly nerdy, but hopefully fun animation question. Let's find out what Tom's favorite animation principle is.
I mean, squash and stretch. It's got to be my favorite.
I love art books. Even though I only end up reading and skimming a portion of them, I like having books around. So I asked for any book recommendations for learning the craft.
If you're really just getting into character design for the very first time, I have a really good entry-level book called Creating Characters with Personality. And I do still think that there's a lot of good information. It was stuff that I was taught at Disney and at Cal Arts before that. So good concepts in there, I still think.
Agreed. Tom just gave me a great framework for navigating my time as a new artist at the expo. So I started a checklist. First, spend as much time at the panels as I can. And second, spend as much time talking to artists as I can. And third, I don't remember the third thing. What was the third thing?
2 things.
Oh, there wasn't a third thing. And so it began. I'm really glad I got the VIP pass because it allowed me to get in the exhibit hall a little early and start to talk to artists. John Pomeroy is an American animator, producer, writer, and painter. He was hired by the Walt Disney Company in 1973, working under Frank Thomas. In the years that followed, John worked on films like The Rescuers, Pete's Dragon, The Small One, and Fox and the Hound. Then in 1979, John went to work with his partners Don Bluth and Gary Goldman and started Don Bluth Productions. With Don and Gary, he animated and co-produced The Secret of NIMH, An American Tale, The Land Before Time, All Dogs Go to Heaven, and Thumbelina. I was so happy to get a moment of John's time to ask for some advice.
It takes commitment, and it's kind of based on the desire of your heart. What drives you as an artist? What do you want to say with the skill that the Lord has given you? And it takes, a daily commitment. Even when you don't feel like it, sitting down and sketching for me is what I commit to doing every day. Writing, searching for ideas, and kind of, acknowledging and expressing how you feel as an artist about the world around you and the people that you know. It really comes down to that, Family, neighbors, friends, colleagues, on and on, will give you great impressions and inspirations for your works.
In our discussion, he shared how his love for puppetry and sculpting at an early age ultimately led him to animation.
Well, going way back to the very beginning, my family was very encouraging in a very light way. They didn't push me in any particular direction, but I loved sculpting, and sculpting led me to puppetry, and puppetry led me to animation. And when I saw films when I was 8 years old, I would go home and recreate them in clay. So already a desire to express myself about what I saw of the world around me was already happening at the age of 7 and 8. So that just kept going. And, there was a desire in my heart to just love to express myself in clay, sculpting, in drawing, in painting, and then eventually in animation.
Hearing John's story was very inspirational. I took away from speaking with him that it's really important to be committed to your art and be inspired by the world around you and to lean into the things that you love. Thank you. What is this, a malt?
Yeah. No, it's a chocolate shake.
Oh, thanks, honey. Going to a Mark Henn panel. It's almost full.
I'm going to ask the most fanboy girl question ever. What's your favorite character that you've ever animated?
Well, I get that question a lot. And it is very difficult to answer because I do enjoy and have enjoyed working on all the different characters that I've animated. That goes along with, what's your favorite movie, which, as you know, Mulan, I give a slight edge to for very special reasons because that was our first feature film that we did at the Florida studio.
Mark Henn worked for 43 years in Disney feature animation. Mark animated some of the most popular Disney heroines, including Princess Tiana, Jasmine, Belle, Pocahontas, Ariel, and Mulan. He also animated young Simba in The Lion King and Mickey Mouse in Mickey's Christmas Carol. At a panel with Tom Bancroft, I actually learned that Mark was considered one of the faster animators at feature animation.
How you became the fastest animator at Disney?
Well, it was kind of
just through steady work, developing my workflow, is the term they use today. But I just felt I wanted to have as much of an influence in the films as I could, and that was having as much of my work in a film as possible. And just over time and over the years, just refining my work process allowed me to get faster and work a lot more efficiently. So it was kind of planned, but then it just kind of happened naturally.
And of course, Mark explained that when you're first starting out, it's very important to know what excites you as an artist.
Well, I think you have to first identify what it is that you're excited about. Are you excited about sculpting or painting or quilting or anything like that? So first decide what it is you're interested in, and that's just the starting place. It could change. You might get into painting and say, I don't like oil paintings, I'd rather use acrylics, or I'd rather do watercolors instead of oil painting. So you just have to kind of jump in and experiment.
Specifically to illustrating children's books, he said you still have to identify a medium.
Well, you still have to identify a medium.
Yes.
I've illustrated a couple of children's books, and I like to use watercolor and pen.
Me too.
I just like the look and feel of that for that. But otherwise, I do some oil painting, and I've done some sculpting in the past for my own personal artistic outlet. So identify that, what you like, and dive in and just have at it.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
And finally, I asked Mark what inspired him the most as an artist.
Oh, that's a good question. I'm very thankful to the good Lord for giving me a talent, and it's something that I wasn't necessarily the greatest animator, but that was always my goal. But I think as an artist, it's nice to be able to create something that people can enjoy. Sometimes art is created for an audience, and I think that's important. And I appreciate being in a place like this, talking with people who have told me how much they appreciate the art, the animation that we've done as a studio and that I've been involved with. So I think as an artist, being able to create something that an audience of viewers is going to enjoy is very important.
My key takeaways from talking with Mark are, again, know what you want to do based on what inspires you and what you're drawn to, and lean into that. It seems to be a theme. And again, I can't say enough how cool it was to get to have a conversation with Mark Henn. Check this out. He signed my bag. What? What was your favorite Disney heroine that Mark had a part in animating? Leave it in the comments below. This is Blaise. Aaron has been a professional artist, animator, and director for over 35 years. Aaron helped make some of the most beloved films of all time, including Beauty and the Beast, Aladdin, The Lion King, and Pocahontas. In 2003, he was nominated for an Oscar for co-directing Brother Bear. His mission is to make high-quality online art and animation training affordable for everyone through his website, creatureartteacher.com. Aaron has produced a new hand-animated short film called Snow Bear, which will debut this year. It was premiering at the expo, and I was so bummed that I didn't get a ticket in time, and it was sold out, and I heard he got a standing ovation, which is so cool. But he graciously took the time to talk to me and give me some advice about starting to pursue art later in life and about doing that while raising a family.
Well, as a parent myself and having gone through it, starting late in life is no different than starting early in life. The best way to get better at it is to do it, right? And so then if you didn't have a family, obviously you'd be doing it 24/7. So you can't do that when you have a family, and so it's really about scheduling. That's the biggest thing that I found, is that I would have a certain time that I would work, and then I had a certain time that I would spend with my family, my children, my wife, everybody all together, and I balanced that. Now, obviously, you can't always hold to that rigid schedule, but at least starting with that schedule and treating it. It sounds cold to say treating it like a job, but if you treat it like that and you are strict about keeping your schedule, it's a great way to kind of get everything in. If you don't really have any kind of structure, then you'll find that you just get kind of all over the place and you don't feel like you advance. But at least setting up a structure for yourself, then you can feel like you're advancing.
Can you say structure?
Structure.
Can you say structure?
Structure.
Because I am a member of Creature Art Teacher, I asked Aaron for recommendations on courses to learn specifically the art of picture book making.
Illustration for picture books. I would recommend the character design course. I would recommend my animal drawing courses, any of the animal drawing courses. I've got an anatomy course if you want to draw humans. I've also got courses on digital painting, color. So there's a lot of things that are all going to, in some way or another, affect that direction that you might want to go in.
Assuming that he was interviewed a lot and I didn't want to just have a question that was just throwaway, I asked him to tell me what his favorite question to be asked was. Well, first I asked, what's a question he wished somebody would ask him? And he said he didn't know, but he did like his favorite question to be asked was...
I love when people, like what inspires me, when people ask me what inspires me. And it's really... Nature is the first thing that ever really inspired me. Getting out to where we came from as a species, where our roots are, getting out and just feeling the earth, seeing the animals, feeling the air and feeling and smelling the smells and all of that really influences the work that I create. And then it's, from there. And then the rest, taking that and then really compelling stories, emotional stories. Those are the things that really inspire me to want to create. So those are the two things together.
My key takeaways from talking with Aaron would be that it's great to balance time management and family life with structure. I'm still figuring out how to do that, but it's good advice. Next, I just wanted to go outside when he told me about how nature inspired him. Just to go outside and sit in my backyard and find a butterfly to draw or something like that. It was wonderful to talk to Aaron, and I can't wait to see Snow Bear. Matthew O'Callaghan is a world-renowned animator, storyboard artist, and director. He began his career at Disney working on well-known films such as The Little Mermaid, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and The Great Mouse Detective. His directorial debut was the theatrical animated short The Itsy Bitsy Spider, featuring Jim Carrey, which he later developed into a TV series for Paramount. O'Callaghan also collaborated with comedian Louis Anderson to create the award-winning TV series Life with Louie for Fox.
Around and looks, she'll find my heart is full of love. Oh, Tommy, that's so beautiful. And the calligraphy is simply gorgeous.
Calligraphy?
Your turn, Lara.
I asked him what his favorite project was to work on, and here's what he said.
I have such great memories of each individual project. As an animator, certainly Little Mermaid is a big hit because it's the most recognizable. And it was kind of my big breakthrough, because I was working under an animator before, and this was kind of like my, here it's yours, go get it. So that was important. And then, as a TV, being in television, Life of Louie was one of my creations, and it's an older property right now, but I still really enjoyed it and very proud of it. And then more recently, as a director, Curious George.
I just watched that with my kids.
You almost have to go seek that now, because I think the PBS TV show, which used all our designs, that's on more often than the movie. Mickey's Twice Upon a Christmas is out every Christmas, and that I'm very proud of.
Matthew explained it's important to know the direction you want to go in when you're starting an art career, and shared some cost-saving resources. it's not necessary to spend a lot of money up front.
I guess it depends on where your interests are. You know what I mean? Whether it's illustration or whether it's animation or whatever. But as far as resources, I think probably the cheapest option would be any sort of books. Like if there's a storyboard, if you want to get into storyboarding, there are many people that do storyboarding books. Or if it's just general illustration or greeting card design, I would probably first spend less money and just buy some Amazon books or something and thumb through it and see if it's something that oh yeah, this is something that sparks my interest to delve into it further versus spending a lot of money on a big online class, because I think interaction is always very important too, because when you do something, you want somebody that knows what they're doing to be able to give you not criticism, but guide you and encourage you correctly versus being alone in a room not knowing what to do. So I would definitely maybe start with those steps. But and then if you're local, I'm sure there's local classes or anything like that.
In my next two interviews, I am talking to Amanda MacFarlane and Joanna Davidovich. I loved these interviews because we talked about being moms and what that means as artists. First up is Amanda. Let's hear what she has to say.
I started when I had my firstborn, Allie, and I was like, you know what? I've always wanted to be an artist. I want to start to show my kids, my little girl, that you can still do it, So, I was like, just started drawing. I was a kid drawing all the time, like from when I was a little baby to, well, not a baby, but you know what I mean. Ever since I held the crayon in my hand, I could draw all day long. But then, in my 20s, when I started having kids, I just really wanted to pick it up and do it professionally. So I started drawing and posting on as much as I could, on the web or Facebook, and then when Instagram started, I was the first one on there, and so that just really helped me to get seen. And I didn't have any college experience or anything like that. It was just completely just on my own, and so I just tried to study as much as I could, here and there, look at other people's work.
Amanda MacFarlane is an artist based in Missouri, and she freelances for companies like WAG, Warner Brothers TV, Spa Studios, and Disney Imagineering. She also hosts art studies on Patreon. I asked Amanda what inspires her work.
Oh, I love the old style Disney. That really inspired me, Mark Davis and Milt Kahl, and I don't even know if I said his name right, but anyway, I loved his stuff. And so this really inspired me to just draw on my own and just create that way.
I've seen a lot of her work on Instagram, and I think she's really crushing it and has since the beginning. So I asked her what advice she would give today to somebody wanting to leverage social media for their art career, but also I asked what she thought about the algorithm.
The algorithm is terrible right now. I will say that. It's hard to get seen. So what I would do now, as opposed to when it was not a problem in the beginning, is I would try to hop on different challenges that they have, just to tag the artists themselves, and just even reach out to them, even if they don't get to message you back. Eventually, they will look at it. So
now on to the fun topics: momming and arting. Arting? That's not a word.
I don't really remember very much. It's such a blur because all you're doing is taking care of kids, not sleeping, drinking coffee, and then there are art supplies laying around everywhere that you can't make them eat. So
but they'll draw on the furniture.
They'll draw on the furniture. You just have to accept that they will draw on the furniture and the wall. They don't want to be like mommy. It's a struggle with kids, but it's very rewarding. And then you can do the art with them too as they're growing up, and it's just exciting. So.
Next, I'm talking to Joanna Davidovich. Joanna has worked for over 20 years in the animation industry, having clients such as Disney, Warner Brothers, and Cartoon Network as an animation artist, designer, and board artist. And the first question I asked Joanna was, what advice can you give somebody who's first starting out?
You know, it's really easy to look at all of these really young, talented kids and get discouraged because they're so good at such a young age. But I don't think that art is something that is a boat that will pass you by. Like, if you are dedicated to it and you're willing to do the work, I don't see any reason why you can't teach yourself at any point in life. And really, that's what it is. No matter what school you go to or what mentor you have, you always have. It comes down to you teaching yourself, doing the work. Because it's great to have a mentor who will do red lines and draw overs for you and help you see things more clearly, more quickly.
Yes.
But at the end of the day, you're always teaching yourself.
Next, she shares her advice on resources for new artists and some of her favorite books.
The internet has opened up a whole universe of resources, but traditionally it was always books by the legends. You've got cartoon art, Preston Blair, you've got Illusion of Life, you've got all of the Richard Williams books. My favorite book growing up was the Chuck Jones, his first semi-autobiography, Chuck-a-Mug. For that book, I loved it because it wasn't just about technical advice, it was about why he does what he does, like what he observes in life and how it informs his art. And that's another thing that is important because it's wonderful to look at other people's art and get inspired about how they've solved these visual problems and what shape language they've created. But you also have to find out what inspires them. Go to the sources behind the artists, because at a certain point when other artists are just mimicking what the other artists are doing, things become pretty stale. So that's why I really like Chuck-a-Mug, because he's like, well, maybe I should read Mark Twain, because Mark Twain was very formative for Chuck Jones. And he talks about Johnson the cat he had when he was a kid, where he learned about personality. But if you're doing something that you feel like it's a genuine compulsion that you have to make this art, that the trends don't matter. Like, that's something that I always push back against when people say being relevant. Like, being timeless means you're relevant forever. And who gets to say if you're relevant or not? I just have the ideas, I gotta get them out of my head, and you can decide if it's relevant to you.
Joanna shares a unique perspective on calling something work-life balance and how she feels about being a mom and an artist.
There's that expression, work-life balance. And I don't think it's so much about balancing. Like, they're not on opposite ends of the seesaw. They're not antithetical to each other. The work and the art is part of your life. And I just, like, if I'm just doing the mom thing without any of the art, I'm a worse mom. If I just do the art thing without, properly parenting, I'm a bad artist. Like, because I'm like, my mind is always being drawn from one to the other. So I'm trying to come up with a better analogy for what it is, because I don't like the idea that they're opposing forces. You do art with your kids. Your kids are interested in what you do, and every kid is a creative genius. I know, you see what my 6-year-old does, I'm like, oh my God, I've never thought of a rooster that way before.
So free.
It's just like completely free, and you also get to see the germinations of self-criticism. It starts so early. So like, my kids will come up to me like, here's what I drew, I hate it. And you're like, why are you so critical?
Like, where do they get that from?
Where do they get that from?
Hear me say something like that.
Yes. So, I don't have a succinct good answer for work-life balance. I just know that it needs to be, it's all life.
Elena, tell me about your islands.
There's rocks, and then there's some shiny stuff. The shiny stuff. Oh, these. Here's the rocks. And here's a tree with a coconut on it. Some pasta and some rocks around it. A plant and a seashell. Pop prints.
I think it's wonderful.
And it has some seashells and a snowflake right here.
A snowflake?
Yeah.
And I can't believe that I have the privilege of being able to moderate this panel.
Initially, I thought I was going to go to all of the panels, literally all of them, but some of them crossed over as far as the time that they started, and also I actually needed a break here and there. So I didn't go to all of them, but I really loved the ones that I did go to, and I definitely took a lot of notes.
The moral of the story is just to try things you don't expect. You know, even if it's not exactly what you think you have in line for your own journey, it's never harm to try something new.
Follow your passion and act on that. And then, you know, if it becomes a tool, then you learn the tool.
So this panel is about freelance and social media and self-marketing and work-life balance, but because it's about social media, I'm going to get a real quick video of everybody real quick. Okay, so real quick. I'm going to start the video, and then on the count of 3, let's all say animation, y'all. Okay, 1 second. Animation, y'all, and 1, 2, 3. Animation, y'all! You're all famous now. Yes, you're famous.
Brandon Warren is an Atlanta-based director, storyboard artist, and illustrator who has been working professionally in the animation industry for over 16 years. He contributed his creative ideas to shows including SpongeBob SquarePants, DuckTales 2017, Kid Cosmic, Big Nate, and DC's League of Super Pets. He was also the supervising director on Nickelodeon's Camp Coral, SpongeBob's CG spinoff. He has recently developed and run storyboarding workshops for art schools and for local schools and libraries in the metro Atlanta area. He believes strongly that his success was built on the kindness and generosity of mentors he was lucky enough to learn from throughout his career. So he has committed to helping the next generation of artists by sharing information and paying it forward whenever he can. I was actually at a panel and I heard Brandon telling this story, so I asked him to repeat it for my interview about how he got his start in storyboarding in sort of an unconventional and some would say lucky way.
Yeah, so I was being a PA, and was not the best PA. So the showrunner came up one day and kind of yelled at me. He said, "Why the heck? What's going on with you, man?" And he was holding a little Post-it note with my drawing, and I thought I was being fired, but he was just trying to tell me that he could tell that I could draw, and he said that he needed help on storyboard. So he said, "I want you to do boards for me." And I had never even taken a boarding class. I had only gone to school for background painting. So, and you know, I was thrown off a little bit, but he said, "I don't care, I'm gonna teach you everything I know about boards and everything you need to know." So I took the job and I was working from 9 to 5, I was a PA, and then I'd go home and sleep for an hour, eat for an hour, and then go back to the studio and just do storyboard revisions until 2 in the morning. And I had all this energy to just focus on my craft. It was an opportunity and I wasn't gonna let it go.
Brandon tells me about visual storytelling relating to the differences in making a storyboard for animation and building a children's picture book.
I think with telling a story visually is the same, whether it's in a book or on the screen with storyboards. But I think that storyboarding really focuses on the emotion and the expression, and you know, in animation we're thinking about movement, so I think that's something that you don't really focus on in children's book illustration. So hopefully I can help bring some of that dynamic, you know, visuals from storyboarding into the storybook realm. So.
And finally, I asked for advice on how to be a more confident artist.
I would really focus on figure drawing and learning the human anatomy and animal anatomy. I wish I would have learned a lot more of that earlier in my career and focused more on that, because I think that would create more of the building blocks for the skills needed later on.
My key takeaway from talking with Brandon would be just to draw everywhere you go. Somebody noticed Brandon drawing at his job, and something awesome happened as a result. So if it's something you love to do, draw everywhere. I think that really is going to help me get over my fear of drawing in public, because, I mean, it's how you do it. You just do it. When it comes to improving in the craft, I learned from him, don't sleep on figure drawing and anatomy. Let me know in the comments if you agree with this advice and if you have found that has helped you. According to her bio, Taylor Parrish was born and raised in Western Pennsylvania. Taylor spent most of her early days watching countless hours of cartoons and movies. And she would pause movie scenes and redraw every single shot. Fast forward to her second year at the Savannah College of Art and Design, she realized that her true passion was in storyboarding. Through her boards, Taylor brought so many animated shows to life, including Disney TV's Firebuds and FX's Archer. Taylor shares when she learned that her art could be a career choice.
It wasn't until I used to pause movie scenes when I was around 12 and redraw every single shot. I redrew almost every shot in Titanic when I was 12 years old. And it wasn't until high school where I moved to my new school where they encouraged me to go into art. And I didn't know it was a career choice. I thought it was just a hobby to pass the time, but that really encouraged me to get into art. And all I knew is that I wanted to be at Disney, and because I grew up with those films, you know, just like every 90s kid has. And it wasn't until I went to school at the Savannah College of Art and Design, and probably around sophomore year, I was like, I don't know if, I was like, I love animation. I worry that I'm not going to get a lot of jobs, you know, and because I majored in 2D, everything was going 3D at that point. So it wasn't until I talked with my professor, who was a Disney alumni in the 90s, and he encouraged me to go into storyboarding, and I realized that's what I wanted to do, and I haven't looked back since.
When asking about resources, she really emphasized how networking is a great tool.
As for you know, my journey, I always acquiring new learning and reaching out to artists on LinkedIn, Instagram, any social media, just to get their advice, because even though I've been in this for about 12 years of boarding professionally, I'm still learning, you know, I'm learning always something new versus like television storyboarding versus feature film storyboarding, and I wanted to, you know, build up my craft and network. And so the best way I did it was friend people online and ask them questions and get their advice, you know, and I'm still learning that.
Finally, for advice on improving in the craft, Taylor says,
just draw every day. Whether I say, I always bring a sketchbook with me because, you know, you can easily look at your phone, but, you know, you'd be surprised how many people stare at their phones at the airport. It's the best way to draw every day, and they're the perfect drawing subjects. Sometimes I'll draw what happened to me the night prior, do like a little comic of myself or a funny conversation I had. I sometimes will draw out a bad date I had of a weird, you know, slice of life stuff I love. So I sometimes, let me think, I will draw of my animals laying on the ground, you know, or just sleeping. I'll draw, sometimes I'll do a thing where I'll listen to music and storyboard what I think or draw out what I'm feeling, just to get some ideas. Sometimes I'll scroll through Pinterest and get inspired by photographs, or I love drawing stuff with history, you know, I love doing old photographs and seeing the story behind that. That's one of my things I like doing. And I don't know, it's just sometimes it's important to be creative outside of drawing. Like I will sometimes do other things like playing piano will help with creativity, and you know, getting out of my comfort zone, meeting people, new people, that's also helpful because, you know, you get stories and you want to capture those on paper and network, you know, like what you're doing here is the best place to network with other artists and get their advice and learn from them.
My key takeaways from talking with Taylor are to draw every day, emphasize networking, and just be obsessed. I really love how she watched her favorite movies and redrew the scenes. It's just reiterating what I've heard. Lean into what you love, and she loved movies and cartoons growing up. So I love how that worked for her. Artists, what movie scenes would you redraw? Let me know in the comments. And also let me know what you thought about Taylor's fabulous advice. Peter Raymundo was a character animator on 9 films for Walt Disney. He is an author-illustrator that has had his books published around the world by Abrams, Scholastic, and Penguin Random House. And I was shocked at how many drawings he said he was told to do in college.
I was a freshman in college at Columbus College of Art and Design. A lot of people got hired from Disney, or to Disney there, like 1 or 2 people per year. They started to throw around that you need to do around like 30,000 drawings in college.
Yes, he just said 30,000 drawings. Woo!
And so I broke that down into, say, if I did about 100 drawings a day, now these are quick sketches. If you're drawing a quick sketch, if you imagine you're drawing something that's like, I don't have any of them with me now, but like 5 minutes, right? Even less than 10-minute drawing, and you're just drawing, you can get used to that, and you get better and better and better, not by like trying to master one really good drawing or one good figure drawing, like a 3-hour figure drawing. I mean, that has its value, but I for me, got better by I averaged for about 3 years, in minimum 100 drawings a day. I mean, I did well over 30,000 drawings when I was in college, and I was already really good. I mean, I had a 4-year scholarship, but from there to get to Disney level, that's just kind of what it took. My advice to you, again, to be clear about that, is repetition, but vast amounts of repetition.
Peter talks about what he uses for reference and how going to the zoo and spending time with the animals there was a great resource to him. Unfortunately, when I go to the zoo, I'm dispensing snacks and keeping my monkeys out of the cages.
I would look at paintings actually a lot. Okay. Right? I look at a lot of watercolors. Sargent, those watercolors usually, Homer. Those are my favorite. And then I loved not really tight ones, like usually looser ones, like the Sargent ones. And then I would, like, as far as what I look at, sometimes I would go to the spot, right? I would go out and just like kind of, because if you see this like plein air, they call it, right? So I'd be like, shh, and that would kind of be good. But a lot of times I just have a photo because you're just practicing and stuff too. And animal drawing is hard and almost impossible at first because they're moving around. So what I would learn to do is I would draw, like, say, a zebra or a turtle, something like that, in multiple angles, and start it with just the simple shapes, right? Just like circles, stuff like that. And then I wouldn't finish it, but as the things hit it back and hit that shape, I'd go back to the same drawing. I'd go literally at the zoo. Yeah. I had an annual pass. I'd be able to do like from literally open to close. I mean, hundreds and hundreds, like 200 days of the 365, I would go. Look at it and draw hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, 100 a day. That's how I got better.
Next, we talk about his experience as an author-illustrator, which is my goal. So I was excited to hear what he had to say.
I'm an author and illustrator, right? I have a multi-book deal with Random House, right? This is my 9th book. Okay. Actually, this is a graphic novel. This book, I'm gonna pitch it real quick.
Yeah, go for it.
So this book it's a graphic novel. It's a fictional story about 5 very different characters all converging on a national championship, a speed cubing national championship. Okay. So that said, if you're going to pitch even a 2-hour movie, same thing. Yes. It's about this giant shark attacking a town, right? And then let it go from there. So I was able. So you're a writer-illustrator, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So my first books were picture books. I do both picture books and chapter books. This is my first graphic novel, which is really, really hard. This took. Look at all the pictures, right? Very, very, very hard.
I found out what Peter thought about animating and storyboarding and how it relates to picture books.
There's not a big stretch from storyboarding a sequence and doing a picture book, right? Because even at Disney, it's probably not a secret, but like at Disney, when you do the story tests, you don't really use words, right?
You have to do a storyboard?
Yeah. Okay. And so, but you don't use dialogue and words. You want to just show it just visually, right? So when you do enough of those, it really helps you have the goal, right? Your character has a goal, and there's something's in the way of the goal, and then you do that without any words, no dialogue, no talking, just use the expression, body language, staging, stuff like that. Mm-hmm. It's not a far stretch to go from that to a picture book. So my first picture book was a breakthrough where I got my agent and I got published by Abrams. In fact, there was a bidding war even with it. There's only 6 words in the whole thing, and it's called The Monkey Goes Bananas. And it had to do with a monkey. He's on this one island, and then there's another island with bananas on it. And he basically is trying to get across, but right away finds out there's a shark in the water. And so he tries, fails, and then ultimately, does this thing it ends not like quite as you expected. Think of story just as I pitched this. So you think of it as very, very simple, and to try to tell the story initially with very few words.
My key takeaways from talking to Peter is just get your reps in, draw as much as you can, and draw with good reference. Go to the zoo if you have to. It meant a lot to me to hear his perspective on what makes a good, solid picture book. I liked how he shared about how to pitch your story, like he did with Monkey Goes Bananas and The Lucky Scramble. Have you done 100 drawings in a day? How many are you at right now? Let me know in the comments. Kodasea lives in DFW, Texas, and draws heavy inspiration from foggy East Coast aesthetics, cursed fish, and moody mysteries. Hear Kodasea tell a little more about their background and inspiration.
So I've basically been drawing since I could hold a pencil. I started considering it professionally in senior year of high school, I would say, or around high school. And then I went and got my BFA in illustration and entertainment design in LCAD, which is Laguna College of Art and Design. So I've always had a passion for storytelling, for horror. Some of my biggest inspirations have been Stephen King and like certain parts of, Lovecraft.
Oh yeah.
So I really like the interaction between kind of like nature and us. Yeah. Used to be very traditional. I did a lot of ink work, but nowadays I tend to be almost completely digital. So I kind of take in a lot of reference. I'm very much somebody that likes to prep a lot before I begin. And then once I kind of have a general idea of what I'm going for, I kind of sketch around, ideate a bit. My favorite part is inking. I love seeing it kind of go from like an idea to like actually something physical, like it's coming out, it's fleshed out.
We talked about the comparison trap and how artists can easily be discouraged early on in their journey. And I asked, should I give up and go home? Everyone here is so talented.
Do not give up and go home. I think it's very tempting to give up, but you really just have to find what you love and just kind of become insane about it. And for me, that's fish. For me, that's kind of discovering like the line of, monster and man.
My key takeaways from talking with Kodasea are to avoid giving up if it's really what you love doing. I love that there's an obsession and just zeal for what you are doing, and that way it keeps you going when it's difficult. Do you agree with this advice? How do you deal with the comparison trap? Let me know in the comments because I'll be taking notes. I'm about to talk to Ali Guthrie. It was a very fun conversation. She's been in the animation industry for about 5 years, and she's recently gained the title as character costume designer. It was really interesting to hear her talk about that process.
It's not just about what they're wearing. It's the costume's going to help tell the character's story. So there might be little minute details, like if you think of Elsa, sometimes her stuff is made of ice. Like, so you won't see the seams and stuff like that because she makes it out of thin air, I guess. So you would do it in 2D to do the design concepts, and I work in Procreate and also Photoshop for packaging and stuff like that. And then you would send it off to someone to build the costume, and they usually use Marvelous Designer, which is you're basically building the costume like you would in real life, but in CG.
I asked her for resources and what her favorite sources of inspiration were for her characters.
Pinterest is a big one, but really just any fashion books, just wherever I can find inspiration.
And finally, any advice for mastering the craft?
Yeah, I think honestly, you just need to follow what you purely want to work on, and you just have to hustle. You just have to, there's no shortcut, unfortunately. You just have to draw every day and study what you can, study anatomy, study perspective, all that stuff. Yeah. And doing master copies too, of artists you admire, like the old masters, contemporary stuff, anything that inspires you, so that you can kind of understand yourself, like maybe the decisions that they made artistically and how you can apply it to your own work.
My key takeaways from talking with Allie were to hustle and do master studies, reverse engineer the art that you enjoy, and always be learning. Do you agree with Allie's advice? Let me know in the comments. We're about to hear from Ralph Thomas with Sketch Wallets. Ralph and his wife are from the Las Vegas area, and it was really fun to hear how they found a solution to the problem that a lot of artists face, which is, or at least that's my opinion, I'm assuming they do, I do, how to sketch in public.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was in traditional marketing, and so I did a lot of logo design and advertising campaigns and things like that. And I switched careers to game art. And so I got a job at a game company, and I was super intimidated by all the other artists there. Like, they were top level illustrators for game art. I'm like, I gotta up my game. I gotta get better at drawing, you know. I started carrying a sketchbook with me, just a pocket one. I think it was a Moleskine Kahir. And I just loved carrying a sketchbook, and I found like I drew a lot more just at lunch break or the dentist office or whatever. I always had a pocket sketchbook. So one year for Christmas, my wife asked me what I wanted for Christmas, and so I said, you know, you're crafty, why not make me a wallet that's like a passport wallet, but fits the sketchbook I liked. And so she made a leather one. It was fantastic. She's a little embarrassed by it now because it's a little rough, but it was great. So I had a wallet, I carried my sketchbook in the wallet, and I just found I drew a lot more, and more importantly, I never forgot it. Like, sometimes when I carry a wallet and a sketchbook, I would forget my sketchbook, but I'm in the habit of taking a wallet, so I would never forget it. My artist friends would see that I had this wallet, and everybody was interested in it, and I'm like, I'm not having my wife make you one. So I made a professional prototype, put it on Kickstarter, and it all kind of went from there. So the Kickstarter went great, and every year since, we've just kind of added new colors, new styles, new sizes. It's been good.
As a successful artist and business owner, I wanted to hear his advice to someone just starting out as an artist later in life.
The biggest thing is persistence. So, like, no matter where you're at or where you're starting, is persistence. Like, it takes a lot to put yourself out there, to create stuff. To finish things is huge. Everybody starts stuff and they don't finish, you know? So it's like, if you could just finish it, even if it's not perfect, finish it. And that is persistence. If you have that trait, I feel like you'll be fine.
My key takeaway from talking with Ralph was how important it is to finish what you're working on and to be persistent. This is something that challenges me. I have a lot of open tabs sometimes that I don't get to. I don't get to finish art sometimes. I just start with the rough sketches and move on. So I was encouraged by our conversation. I also think it is a very convenient tool to use a sketch wallet to draw in public. I like how discreet it is. What do you think? What do you use to sketch in public? Do you sketch in public? Let me know in the comments. And next, I'm talking to Craig Hartin about how he got his start at Bento Box Atlanta.
So Bento Box is an LA studio that got its start with the first season of Bob's Burgers and has been working on that series ever since. It grew quite a bit out of the LA office, and then about 11 or 12 years ago now, I met with the owners of Bento out in LA, and I was in Atlanta doing my career and met with them, and they were interested in setting up something out of Atlanta. And so we talked a little bit off and on for a little while, and then finally got together and we're like, let's put something together and see if we can't put a studio in Atlanta. So we formed Bento Box Atlanta, and I've been running that studio for them ever since.
I asked Craig if he felt like a lot of jobs for animators and artists were coming to the East Coast.
Yeah, that was definitely one of the big reasons that we had the conversation, because we were doing work outside of LA that was very different from what LA was doing, where LA was very focused on sort of from a union standpoint and from like primetime standpoint, like working on shows, prepping them, and then shipping them out of the country. And what I was focusing on out of Atlanta was very much like more of the cable side of things, where we actually had smaller budgets. And because of that, we had to find different ways to use the talent that we had locally. And we didn't ship things out. We just kept things and found creative ways to be able to do things a little bit cheaper and a little bit quicker. But we also had the advantage of the fact that we were in the South, so the cost of living was very different. Definitely had the advantages of being non-union in that scenario, because it did play to our favor, because we could give rates based on what the economy was getting at the time, and so what people locally were being paid for things, and we didn't have to have inflation based on just because of the fact that they're unionized. We had a different rate that was set for everything, because every project that came in was different, and so we were able to pay accordingly. We've always paid well and made sure that people are taken care of that work for us. And the schools that are localized, I mean, we had SCAD, we have places like Lipscomb, we have, there's different art institutes that are around. Florida State University also has an animation program. So there was definitely a lot of talent that was coming out of these schools, but they were newer talent. They weren't necessarily seasoned animators or artists that were coming out. So we really sort of took in a lot of that sort of newer talent and helped sort of bring them up to speed with what we were doing and where we needed for the talent to be. So we worked really closely with a lot of schools at the time to like get the training sort of in place of where it needed to be. And Atlanta became sort of a hub for animation, and it grew quite large. There were three relatively large studios, all between 100 and 200 to 300 employees in the different studios. So it grew quite rapidly, over the course of 10 years. Tax incentives also made a big help, as a lot of reasons people wanted to go to Atlanta.
From our talk, I learned that Bento Box in particular puts a lot of effort into developing their artists that they hire. And I wanted to know what Bento Box looks for in a quality artist.
That's a great question. I think it really is capturing emotion, because a lot of what we look for and we have to focus on, majority of our work is comedy. So it's really about how do we get that human quality out of whatever characters we're working with. And it's, can we get emotion out of it? Because a lot of times it's not a lot of like over-the-top acting that's happening. It's all within like how the face is responding, how the character reacts to the other character in a certain situation. So it really is sort of like subtle nuances of like how the character looks, portrays, expresses emotion, and expresses feeling with just an image that's not necessarily have to be played out an entire scene. You can look at a drawing, you can look at a character, just write out it and just know what the emotional situation is in that situation.
My key takeaways from our talk were that even though right now anyway, I'm not in animation, I was encouraged to learn as a takeaway from our conversation that there are lots of jobs coming to the East Coast. I mean, especially from what I've seen at this conference in particular, it's good to know that companies looking for talent and artists will hire someone and invest in them and develop them. At least in the case of Bento Box, that seems to be true. Have you ever pursued a career in animation? What did you think about that experience? Was it easy to find a job, or has it been difficult? Let me know in the comments. Next, I had a fun conversation with Melody Te. She told me how to deal with rejection as an artist and how you may never be the best of the best. She also shared how she got her start by sketching at her parents' bakery in LA.
I'm a character designer and concept artist in the video game industry. My parents own a bakery in LA, and it is around CalArts area. So while my time working there, I actually met a lot of people who are in the industry, and they would always catch me like sketching at work, and they would give me nuggets of wisdom, and I essentially networked with them. I did some workshops, and then I think one thing led to another. My first big break was at an indie game studio that's located in Santa Clarita, which is where CalArts is. And from there, I have had like 7 years of experience hopping around different indie game studios that kind of collaborate with AAA studios like Disney and DreamWorks and Nintendo.
Finally, I asked for advice and resources. Here's what she said.
This sounds like I'm jaded, but just like having thick skin and knowing that like a rejection isn't the end all be all. It counts. It's kind of like athlete energy where it's like it counts more how many times you get up than you do like getting it perfect. So a lot of practice, a lot of making friendships, a lot of accepting that you're always going to learn. Like you're never going to be the best of the best. And yeah, just getting over that hump, I guess.
My key takeaways from talking with Melody were to be patient with the journey that you're on and have thick skin somewhat, because you may be told no a lot of times. And I am experiencing that myself as I'm learning about sending out queries for picture books. You know, you're sending out your work and somebody's going to be saying yes or no. And a lot of times it's going to be a no. And so the key is to not stop. If you really love what you're doing, don't stop. Just because you get told no, because it only takes one yes. Oh, that sounded motivational. How do you deal with rejection? Let me know in the comments below. This is Jeff Snow, one of Hollywood's top story artists and illustrators.
I started working in Los Angeles in the early 90s. I did layout, which is a job title, and storyboards on a television series called Batman the Animated Series. Then I worked on a Spider-Man series for Stan Lee for a while, and that was really cool. Then I went to Disney and I worked as a story artist for The Hunchback of Notre Dame, Mulan, Hercules, and Tarzan. And then I went to DreamWorks and I was there for 15 years working on the Shrek movies and Madagascar movies and How to Train Your Dragon and various others. And then I went back to Disney and I worked on Zootopia, Moana, and Encanto and several other movies as a story artist. And then over the years I've also freelanced on a lot of shows. I've drawn probably more Alvin and the Chipmunks than anybody. And I've also done children's books and book illustrations, and that's kind of currently what my focus is recently most been on.
And finally, when giving advice on how to improve in the craft, Jeff emphasizes patience.
Well, you know, I think you kind of gotta love what you're working on, and it takes patience with yourself, and it also takes patience with a process. I have found on almost everything I work on, I'll start working on something, and whatever project it is, be it storyboarding for a movie or working on a book, my drawings change over time. And so I'll draw and you kind of evolve a process for whatever that project is. And then I almost always find myself going back to the beginning and having to redo the beginning of it because it's changed a lot in the process of doing it. So being open to that, I think, is important.
Erika Wiseman is an illustrator and character designer passionate about creating fun and whimsical characters. She shares her journey through videos and writing to help other artists grow and develop their unique creative voices. Past clients include Disney Lorcaana, Ravensburger, 21 Draw, 3D Total Publishing, Adobe, and Patreon. I asked Erika to start from the beginning to find out the origins of her career as an artist.
Yeah, so I studied fine art in college. Like I've been drawing for ever. Started doing digital art in middle school, so in 2007, and then I ended up going to fine art school, even though my art is very much not fine art. But we didn't have any digital art stuff at school, so I just kind of learned that on my own and kind of brought the fine arts traditional skills together with that, and that's kind of I don't know, what I do now.
I've definitely seen Erika's work on 21 Draw and Instagram, and she seems to be really doing well on social media. So I asked her how she manages it and what does she feel the pitfalls are.
It's very complicated because at first I posted so much. I was trying to post almost every day, and it was too much to where I completely burnt myself out. I spent a few years after that rarely kind of posting, And now I'm still trying to find the balance for that. But I think the most important thing is to be authentic to like what you like to do. And I know there's always like trends going on social media and stuff, but it's like, think about like, does this actually like resonate with me, instead of just jumping on it because it's like, you know, the latest thing, you know?
Erika shares about the things that influence her art the most.
A lot of video games, like a lot of stories, things that have like really like nuanced emotion and like it's like kind of complicated a little bit. I don't know. But yeah, just like a lot of like whimsy and like fantasy stuff as well. So yeah, like a lot of like kind of like Legend of Zelda.
I asked her what tools and resources she would share to someone who is self-taught.
Like really pay attention to like the things that light you up. Like whenever you're working, like what feels so right to like create. Like even like when, you know, you're doing studies and stuff, like trying to improve, like really try to put a fun twist on that. Because if you're doing a study and it's kind of like, oh, I'm doing like another master study of like I don't know, like a painting or whatever, like it can kind of get boring, like if you're not like super into it. And I found that like the best way to improve is to like honestly like get obsessed with something, like a fandom or something, and it's like wanting to draw the characters better or something helped me improve like facial structure and anatomy and stuff. I've taught courses on 21 Draw, and then I also have like a Patreon where I have tutorials that I've made, and also a YouTube channel. So I try to like share.
Yes, I'm
like,
a part of 21 Draw. I just joined
really?
it, so I'm gonna have to look your course up.
Awesome! Yeah.
Lara Carson is a Canadian illustrator based in Vancouver, BC. She works as a 2D designer for TV animation and does freelance illustration on the side. According to her bio, she loves fairy tales and folklore and using color and shape to convey narrative in unexpected ways. Lara talks about her day job and her freelance pursuits, which a lot of them she isn't even allowed to talk about.
My day job is working in the animation industry. I'm a background designer, like biz dev concept art for environments, for TV animation. I am from Canada, so I do work in Canada, so the industry is a little bit different there, but mostly the same. And then all this stuff is just like my personal freelance, you know, side hustle kind of thing. And I also do, freelance projects on the side. I'm not allowed to talk about a lot of them, but...
Let's hear about her career beginnings and when she decided to take her art to the next level.
Professionally, would say about maybe like coming up on 6 years, 5 or 6 years. I went to university in Canada, so again, school no one's ever heard of. And I have a bachelor's in illustration.
Okay.
I don't think I took it seriously until probably like 2 years in, because then I was like, oh, actually I can do this probably. But then, I got my first job like straight out the gate, and then kept been going ever since.
She talks about how it's good to take inspiration from many sources and use that as fuel for good art.
It's like, it's such a big, I feel like inspiration is like the more people you can pull from, and the bigger your net is, I think the more, like, the better, I guess, which, I mean, is obvious, but like, it's nice to take like just tiny little pieces from like a lot of people and like amalgamate it.
And finally, I asked her for some tips or resources for a self-taught artist.
I think that a lot of artists have really good Patreons. I don't know specifically because I don't follow any specifically, but I know that there are a lot of really good Patreons, like Loish is an amazing digital artist. Yeah, she's amazing, and she has like a very like robust educational Patreon that I think would be I'm sure it would be a good place to start.
My key takeaways from talking with Lara would be that it's good to draw inspiration from many different sources and how Patreon can actually be a great source of art education. Let me know what you thought about Lara's advice in the comments. Well, my friends, we've come to the end of the journey. I just want to give you a quick sneak peek of a conversation I had and tell you that we will be talking more in the future on another episode. Here was my goal. Talk to as many artists as possible, spend time at panels and learn and grow a community. Well, Pauline and I became friends. Pauline is a part of ASIFA, and I'll be talking with ASIFA as well in an upcoming episode.
So I'm the liaison with ASIFA South in the Tennessee, Middle Tennessee area. We're trying to figure out if there are opportunities here to have kind of a local chapter to help support animation artists as they're coming out of school, and just kind of like bring together the community here with the studios and the universities, and have like one kind of central hub for that, for animation artists. Yeah.
I want to say that I'm very encouraged by going to this expo, even editing this video and hearing the advice that I was given over and over as I was cutting clips was just wonderful. I mean, it took a lot of time, but it was great. And I want to say thank you for anyone who's watched this video. If you want to hear more, if you want to see more videos, as I'm starting on this journey, please like and subscribe. And if you are also an aspiring author illustrator like me, or animator in training, just remember, draw every day and draw what you love. Get out there and hustle, network, and do your thing. And I want to see where you go in your journey as well. Thanks again for joining me today. Till next time. See you later.